The orbital drop pod shuddered violently as it penetrated the atmosphere of designation ZK-447, what the Galactic Survival Academy officially classified as a Class 3 Deathworld. Inside, Kiven's chitinous exoskeleton clicked nervously against his restraint harness. His compound eyes tracked the thermal readout climbing steadily, 200 degrees Kelvin on the pod's exterior and rising. "First time," a voice asked from the seat beside him. Kiven rotated his head to face the human cadet, Lisa Chen, who sat with an expression he'd learned to recognize as relaxed. Her biometric readings, visible on his heads-up display, showed a resting heart rate of 62 beats per minute. Kiven's own cardiovascular rhythm pounded at nearly twice that speed. "Yes," he admitted, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into galactic standard. "You." "Third drop," Lisa said, checking her equipment with practiced efficiency. "Did one on a Class 2 last semester and a Class 1 before that during basic orientation." Kiven felt his secondary stomachs clench. Humans were the only species that began their training on Class 1 Deathworlds, planets so hostile that every other sapient race in the known galaxy had banned settlement. The fact that humans called their homeworld, Earth, a Class 1 was something the Academy administrators still struggled to process. The pod's AI announced in its clinical tone, "Impact in 30 seconds, atmospheric composition, 78% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, trace elements including sulfur dioxide from active volcanic systems. Surface temperature, 42 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 87%. Gravity, 1.3 standard. Predator density, critical. Good luck, cadets." Lisa grinned. "Sounds like Florida." Kiven had no idea what a Florida was, but he didn't have time to ask. The pod slammed into something, water, according to his sensors, and the world became a chaos of bubbles and muffled impacts. When the emergency flotation systems activated and the hatches blew open, Kiven found himself staring at a jungle so dense that the canopy blocked out most of the system's binary stars. The air hit him like a physical wall, hot, wet, and filled with the chemical signatures of 1,000 unknown organic compounds. His environmental suit's filters immediately went to work, but Lisa had already removed her helmet, breathing the toxic atmosphere directly. You're breathing it," Kiven stammered. "Oxygen's a bit high, but nothing I can't handle," Lisa said, stretching her arms above her head. "Besides, the suit restricts peripheral vision. Need to see what's trying to eat us." As if summoned by her words, something massive moved in the water behind their pod. Kiven's threat assessment software identified it as a predator approximately 15 meters long, with a jaw structure capable of generating 180,000 newtons of bite force. "Apex predator, aquatic, class Omega threat," Kiven's translator shrieked. "We need to reach land immediately." Lisa glanced at the creature with what appeared to be mild interest. Looks kind of like a mosasaur. Cool." She grabbed her pack and began swimming toward the shore with smooth, efficient strokes. Kiven followed, his 6 limbs churning the water in panic. The predator followed them, its massive form creating a wake that threatened to capsize Kiven with each movement. Lisa reached the muddy bank first and turned, pulling something from her pack, a sonic deterrent device that every cadet received. But she didn't activate it. Instead, she picked up a stone roughly the size of Kiven's head, and as the creature surged toward them with its jaws open, she threw it directly down the predator's throat. The massive animal recoiled, choking, and retreated into deeper water. "Gag reflex," Lisa explained, helping Kiven onto solid ground. "Most predators have one. Effective, non-lethal, conserves equipment charge." Kiven's entire body trembled. That was a calculated risk," Lisa finished. "Come on, we need to find the rally point before nightfall. That's when the really dangerous stuff comes out." The trek through the jungle tested every survival skill Kiven had learned. The vegetation itself was hostile, thorns that secreted neurotoxins, vines that constricted when touched, flowers that released spores capable of inducing hallucinogenic states. Lisa navigated through it all with an unsettling confidence, occasionally commenting on how certain plants reminded her of things from Earth. "See those?" She pointed at a cluster of bulbous, pulsating fungi. "Almost identical to Portuguese man-o'-wars, except these are land-based. Don't touch the tendrils." "How do you know that?" "Because I touched one about 30 seconds before you looked," Lisa said, showing him her left hand. "The skin was red and blistered. Burns like hell, but it's not fatal, probably." Kivin wanted to scream. The human had deliberately touched an unknown xenobiological specimen just to determine its properties. This was either the bravest or most insane thing he'd ever witnessed. As the light filtering through the canopy began to dim, Lisa found a suitable campsite, a small clearing surrounded by dense vegetation, with a rock formation that could serve as a windbreak. She began gathering materials with rapid efficiency: dry wood for fire, broad leaves for shelter, and several specimens of local flora that her portable analyzer confirmed were edible. "Fire?" Kivin questioned. "Won't that attract predators?" "Yep," Lisa said, striking her fire starter. "It'll also keep away the ones that are afraid of it, which in my experience is most of them. Plus, we need to boil water for drinking." The flames caught, casting dancing shadows across the clearing. Kivin activated his suit's thermal regulation to compensate for the additional heat, while Lisa sat close to the fire, apparently comfortable despite the already sweltering temperature. That's when Kivin heard it, a sound like rocks grinding together, coming from multiple directions simultaneously. "Movement all quadrants," his threat assessment system reported. "Multiple signatures, pack behavior indicated." Lisa stood slowly, her hand moving to the survival knife at her belt. "How many?" 12, no 15, 17 distinct thermal signatures. The creatures emerged from the jungle like nightmares given form. They stood roughly 2 meters tall, with crystalline exoskeletons that refracted the firelight in dizzying patterns. Each had 4 arms ending in blade-like appendages, and their heads featured multiple sensory organs that tracked both cadets with predatory intelligence. "Silicate-based life forms," Kivin whispered. "Class Alpha Pack hunters. The briefing said to avoid engagement at all costs." Lisa studied the creatures for a long moment. Then, inexplicably, she smiled. "Kivin, when I say run, I need you to head for that tree line to the east. Don't stop, don't look back. Get to the rally point and report our position." "What? No, I'm not leaving." "That's an order, cadet." Lisa's voice carried a hard edge now. "I'm senior ranking here. This is a survival exercise, and I'm ensuring at least one of us survives. Now get ready." One of the creatures stepped forward, its bladed arms clacking together in what might have been communication. Lisa reached into her pack and pulled out 3 items: a chemical flare, a compressed protein bar, and a small bottle of water. She cracked the flare and threw it into the jungle to the west. The creature's head swiveled to track the sudden bright light and chemical signature. In that moment of distraction, Lisa unwrapped the protein bar and threw it to the nearest creature. The thing caught it reflexively, and Lisa immediately opened the water bottle and took a slow, deliberate drink, maintaining eye contact with what appeared to be the pack leader. Kivin understood. She was demonstrating non-aggression, offering food, showing that she meant no harm. But this was insane. These were silicon-based predators, not social animals capable of. The pack leader made a grinding sound, and the creature with the protein bar tentatively consumed it. Several tense seconds passed. Then the leader turned and made a series of complex gestures with its bladed arms. The pack began to withdraw into the jungle. Lisa remained still until the last thermal signature disappeared from Kivin's sensors. "What? How did you?" Kivin couldn't form a coherent sentence. They're pack hunters, which means they have social structures and communication, Lisa explained, sitting back down by the fire. Social animals are generally capable of recognizing non-threatening behavior. I gambled that offering food and showing vulnerability, drinking water exposes the throat in most species, would trigger a curiosity response rather than an attack response. You gambled our lives on a behavioral hypothesis. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds way less scientific, Lisa said with a shrug. But yes, and it worked, didn't it? The night passed with several more encounters. Each time, Lisa responded with a combination of knowledge, improvisation, and what Kivin could only describe as controlled recklessness. When a swarm of bioluminescent aerial predators descended on their camp, she used the reflective surface of her emergency blanket to disorient them with their own light. When a territorial ground dweller the size of a small shuttle threatened their position, she identified and exploited a weakness in its armored hide that her scanner had detected. By the time the binary stars rose again, Kivin had witnessed what he calculated to be at least 23 situations that should have resulted in their deaths. They reached the rally point, a cleared landing zone where other cadet teams were gathering, just after dawn. Of the 60 cadets who'd been dropped, 43 had made it. Most looked exhausted, terrified, or traumatized. Several required immediate medical attention. Lisa looked like she'd returned from a moderately vigorous hike. The supervising instructor, a grizzled Cranthi veteran with scars from a dozen campaigns, reviewed each team's recorder data. When he reached Lisa and Kivin, his facial tendrils contracted in what Kivin had learned was extreme surprise. "Cadet Chen," the instructor said slowly, "you are aware that this was a survival exercise, not a xenobiology field study." "Yes, sir." "Then perhaps you can explain why your recorder shows you hand-feeding a pack of silicate raptors." "They were hungry, sir, and the protein bars are disgusting anyway." The instructor's tendrils quivered. "You fed them, because the rations taste bad. Also to establish non-aggressive contact and demonstrate that carbon-based and silicon-based life forms can interact peacefully, sir." Seemed like valuable data. For a long moment the instructor simply stared at her. Then he made a notation on his data pad. "Your preliminary evaluation, exceptional tactical awareness, innovative problem-solving, and complete disregard for personal safety. In other words, a typical human performance. You pass." He turned to Kivin. "And you, Cadet Kivin, how do you evaluate this experience?" Kivin's translator took a moment to process his response because he had to consciously slow down his racing thoughts. "Sir, I have learned more about survival, threat assessment, and creative problem-solving in the last 18 hours than in the previous 6 months of classroom instruction. I have also learned that humans are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most insane, and I'm still not certain which." The instructor's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "An astute observation. Dismissed, both of you." As they walked toward the medical screening tents, Kivin turned to Lisa. "You called this basically spring break before we dropped. I still don't understand that reference." Lisa laughed. "Spring break is a human tradition where young people go to dangerous places, do stupid things, and somehow survive to tell stories about it." "So, exactly what we just did." "Exactly what we just did," Lisa confirmed. "Except usually there's more beach and less nearly getting eaten. Usually." Kivin's secondary stomachs finally began to settle. "I think," he said carefully, "that I'm beginning to understand why humans have never lost a war. Because we're too stubborn to realize when we should be dead." "Because you treat the impossible as merely improbable," Kivin corrected, "and the improbable as routine." Lisa considered this. "Yeah, that's fair. So, same time next semester, I heard they're planning a drop on a Class 4 Deathworld." Kivin's environmental suit registered a sudden spike in his stress hormones. There's no such thing as a Class 4 Deathworld. The classification only goes to Class 3. There wasn't, Lisa said with that unsettling human smile, until we found one. Despite every logical process in his multi-chambered brain telling him this was a terrible idea, Kivin found himself nodding. I'll be there. Because if he'd learned anything from this exercise, it was that humans didn't survive by avoiding danger. They survived by running directly toward it with a smile, and a plan that was at least 30% improvisation. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. And